Welcome to KidMin Backstage, the place where we talk about kids ministry and take a peek behind the scenes. We try to share a little bit of what we've learned that works for us and some of our failures so you can avoid them. We release a new episode every Friday, and this is your backstage pass to see the magic or disaster that happens behind the scenes of our kids ministry. I'm your host, Gabe Baker, and today I'm joined by Brother Aaron Boggs.
What's up?
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm glad we got this in.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I think this is going to be a fun topic.
Yes.
Right up my alley. What are we talking about?
So we're talking about, the title is Find the Funny. Find
the Funny. I had to get some alliteration in there. Okay, so if you've ever been on stage in Sunday school, now, of course, we've been doing it for a long time, so this is maybe not as relatable for us. But if you've ever been on stage in Sunday school, you've probably had that moment of panic where you're like, wait, I am not goofy enough naturally or whatever to be up here and to do this. I can't pull this off. I can't be funny. I can't do this. And so, but there's a secret that, so I've thought about this a lot, as you can probably tell, but is that kids really, they're the same kind of audience. Keep on dropping my paper. They're the same kind of audience as adults, in that they love authentic characters. Yeah. That are, and if you're committed to your character and making it, happen. And so, so I wrote that you don't have to be the class clown. No. You don't have to be able to pull all kinds of silly faces. Because, like, for example, like you are more that way than I am. Like the funny, outside of Sunday school or whatever, you're funny and stuff. You and your brother, you get together and it's just dangerous. It's dangerous. Exactly. And so, and then like I'm probably tend to be more reserved and stuff, and then I get on stage and do funny stuff or whatever. And so, and then like Brother Keach, a lot of people would be shocked to see him in Sunday school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're like, what? He does that? So anyway, so there's there is that caveat is you don't have to be super silly, to do well in Sunday school. And I think it's like a lot of people think that, like, oh, I could never be in Sunday school. Yeah. So while we try to balance the comedy, we talk about that all the time about, okay, let's not go too far. It is a useful tool. Very much. And so today, I think we want to just embrace that and talk about it a little bit. We were always talking about balancing it. So today, let's just talk about being funny and getting it, finding that funny. Yeah.
It's true. Like, kids will remember, they'll remember a powerful service or an altar call, but kids will remember something goofy you did, and it helps them tie that to the story. They'll remember the story because of you tripping and just that's the word I keep thinking of when I was thinking about this today, is exaggerate. On actors, they tend to go beyond what you normally do to make it seem more real. And so you exaggerate tripping on stage and roll and fall all the way off the stage. On the other side, they'll laugh and remember it, but they'll also remember it. That'll be tied to the story at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember one year at the Children's Ministry Seminar down in Southern California, Brother Julian, he's on Brother Booker's team down there. So Brother Julian Estrada, he was doing a part. I can't remember. Some of our people were in it too, but he was doing a part, and he comes out with he's trying to fix his hair, and he's got like a push broom, and he's trying to brush his hair with it. It was hilarious. Yeah. And so, stuff like that is, it's great. It's over the top. Right. So point number one I put is create a funny situation instead of relying just on a joke. Yes. Now, here's where this comes from. Here's where kind of the whole podcast comes from, is I was talking to somebody, I was traveling, and I was talking to somebody in another state, and they are awesome children's ministry. They're really great, but they were talking to me about how they don't feel that they are naturally, silly or whatever, and they were like looking at Brother Booker or something, and who is just amazing. Yeah, and they're like, I can't. I'm not that way. Sure. I can't, and so I was like, well, I'm not either. And so and that's kind of where this whole podcast comes from.
Sure.
Is I want to provide some ideas or some thoughts on what can you do if you're not, have a disposition in that regard. So anyway, that's kind of where this comes from. So if you feel like you're like, okay, I can't be silly and crazy or whatever, is instead of depending on the joke, being super funny, like Brother Tyler Hodge, we both know him, being just spontaneous like that. If you can't, then create a situation that's funny.
Yeah.
And then it's natural. However you respond to it, it's going to be funny because the situation is crazy.
Yeah. So one thing, I'll go back to exaggerating. That is an easy way to go about making a scene funny. Is exaggerate everything you do, especially if you're by yourself.
Yeah.
So one thing that came to mind, we did Jonah the other day, so we're in between themes right now. So our thank you. So our upstairs is a little crazy. So we did the story of Jonah and the whale, and I was Jonah. Right.
Okay, yeah.
And at one point, we had a bunch of people on stage, and at one point I was by myself in a fish's belly on stage. Like, how do you do that?
A monologue,
Yeah, by yourself in the guts of a fish or whale or whatever. And so at one point it was me and about 4 or 5 other guys when the storm hit.
When the sailors and stuff.
Yeah.
That was epic in itself.
That was so much fun. And so we're like, okay, we're just going to act like we're on a ship. And we weren't just like, we're dizzy. Oh, I mean, we were like slamming each other.
And go from side to side across the stage.
Yes. From one end of the stage to the other, falling each over, tripping, bouncing. And then on the same token, when I was in the fish's belly and praying and doing that whole thing, when it spit me out, I mean, I'm thinking, man, he spit him out on dry ground, but I went from one side of the stage. In fact, I have a bruise on my leg. One side, because I landed on the edge. One side of the stage to the other. I rolled and bounced and flopped and landed off of the stage, and the kids just were just laughing their head off.
It was,
And it wasn't that I was being like, again, telling a funny joke. I was making the scene funny. I was exaggerating everything.
Exaggerating the whole thing. Yeah, exactly.
And that was fun. I mean, it's a blast for us.
Yeah. Well, and I do think that some stories, maybe not Jonah and the whale, and certainly not like crucifixion or anything like that, but I do think there's some stories that probably were humorous, like, I mean, the talking donkey. I mean,
can you imagine?
So, yeah, I mean, there are things that, I guess, finding the humor in it, and then if you are in, I mean, so I even wrote a note about absurd situations. So when I wrote that, I was thinking of comedy. But even you think of Jonah in the belly of a whale. Now, there's not much more of an absurd situation than that. I mean, what in the world?
I mean, does a fish just to elaborate, is its stomach full of water inside and out?
Yeah.
Or is it hollow? Is he like up against the spine of the fish just trying to breathe? I mean, you see how it,
so absurd. You could totally create that scene. And then what happens is, going back to somebody that's not, have a comic disposition or whatever, is if you just respond to the situation. And I mean, even, we are talking about comedy, but even if you're not worried about comedy, if you just respond to the situation, you're going to engage kids.
Absolutely.
Because they're going to be like, oh, I didn't think about that either. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
Like, what's he doing? Oh, he's in the fish's belly. That's why he's doing that. Or whatever, or spitting out, like you said. And so that's one of those ways with, and the other thing I wrote on the notes there is, your character doesn't know they're in a funny scene.
No.
And so if you, like Brennan always does this really good with Sammy, is, Sammy's just so funny and does stuff, but Sammy is usually not laughing or trying to be funny.
No. He's just in the moment.
He's in the moment. And he's responding to his situation, which is just hilarious.
It's hilarious, right?
And so he's in these absurd situations, and he's not having to create joke. Now, Brennan is very funny, but when he's doing Sammy, he can just be like, it's also like, I remember hearing a comedian say this once, is, I think it was Michael Jr., and he was talking about, it was really good. It was something like, an unexpected turn or something like that. But he was saying you take the audience, you're basically telling a story, and it takes an unexpected turn. And he gave examples, and I can't remember what they were, but it's just like, you know, you're expecting it to go a certain way, and then it's something.
Yes.
You know, or like a lot of times they'll do exaggerations, you know, where they're like, and then I pulled out, you know, I don't know, whatever, you know.
Yeah. It's above and beyond.
Yeah. And so that's where, like, you know, changing your bicycle tire and you grab a spare tire out of the trunk of your car or something, you know, just silly stuff, you know, like that. And where the character doesn't know he's in a funny scene. The character's just trying to deal with this, and it's hilarious because he's trying to get by.
Yeah,
you know? Which leads us into our next point. So number 2 is use honest reactions. And so if you have that absurd situation, or oftentimes you have an absurd character, right? Like Brother Keach is our resident bad guy. And so sometimes he's just really evil, and then you can have a character just be like incredulous at how he's being, you know, and that makes it funny, especially for kids.
That's a good point. What popped in my mind right before he said that was during our spy theme, and there's video evidence of this, and we're not going to talk about who has it because we don't want to get it out. But I was Teddy. I was a character called Teddy, and I can't remember what I was tasked to do. I got kidnapped by the bad guys.
Oh, yeah.
Remember this? And so they were torturing me, in quotation marks, me to get information. And your character was named Professor...
Oh,
maybe not Professor.
Dr. Victor. Yeah.
Dr.
So
Victor.
you got kidnapped by the good guys. That's what it was. Because you were on the bad guys team at first. Yeah.
That's it. So I was being tortured by you as Dr. Victor.
Yeah.
And you had this huge feather.
A feather, yeah.
And you were doing a tickle torture. And I remember, we're going to roll with it. And in fact, I had trouble singing that night because I screamed bloody murder.
I remember that.
Like I was being tortured, like being hurt.
Yes.
And it was all...
And you were so scared.
And I was tied. And I was tied around the chair, and I slipped. Actually, choked myself without meaning to.
I remember that because you were tied. You were tied to a chair. The ropes around you. Yeah, you were tied to the chair.
Yeah, and I was trying to slide down, and it actually caught around my throat, and I couldn't get up. So that part was very authentic. I had dress shoes on.
And you would stage.
I just was doing that. So that part was truly authentic, but.
None of us knew.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, he's doing a great job.
Just leave him there. So that's one that really stuck out of my mind. You take the absurd situation and just make it bigger.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That was fun.
That was hilarious. Yeah. And then, and of course, my character, I'm a good guy, but I'm the interrogator. So I'm kind of mean or evil in that way. And so I'm acting as though that feather pen.
Oh, yeah.
Is a weapon.
You were cackling
and then later I threaten you with it, like, ooh, you're like hiding behind somebody, like, don't let him get me. You know, to go back a long time ago, it was a space theme, I think, years and years ago. We had this, we had created this alien. I gotta get a drink. We had created this alien by stacking somebody on top of somebody's shoulders and then putting a costume over them so they had 4 arms, you know.
Yeah.
So they captured somebody. It might have been you. I don't know. I can't remember.
Probably.
But they captured somebody and they were going to torture them. Well, when we were brainstorming the script or something, I remember thinking, are we going over the line here? You know, I don't want to take this too far.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't want to frighten kids.
Sure.
And so we ended up doing the tickle torture.
Yeah.
And it was ideal because he had 4 arms, so you could just totally tickle, you know. And so that's where the whole thing actually originated. And here we are years later doing the spy theme and the feather pen to tickle torture. So it's not this morbid.
Yeah, and the kids get it. They get it that it's like, it's funny. They understand that it's probably not really how things work, right? Like you wouldn't use a feather to get information, but they just think it's hilarious. You're being over the top, and they just connect with it.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing is, like with honest reactions, is we've done the prodigal son so many times. You know, we've done it various ways and stuff. And so I remember, I think it was Dawson. who I need to have him on the podcast. Yeah. But I think it was Dawson. I can't remember for sure. But he was the older brother. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember who the younger brother was, but they're sitting down for family dinner. So we had like up, by the stage, we have a table set up, mom and dad, older brother, younger brother. So they sit down to dinner, and the younger brother asks, for his inheritance. And Dawson just like, I mean, it was crazy. It was over the top, but he had a hard hat because he'd been working, quote unquote working out in the field or whatever. And so he takes his hard hat and he throws it on the floor, slams it down, just like we're all of us are just like, whoa.
Shocked everybody.
Yeah, he's like, what do you,
how dare you
ask Dad? He's worked hard all his life. He goes,
went off.
I was like, whoa, what happened? And Dawson, he probably, he is not in Sunday school as often as some.
Sure.
But, I mean, he did a great job.
That's awesome.
He was actually one of the main characters in our, original spy theme as far as the one we did, the CIA one.
Yeah, yeah.
He was one of the original. He was Jason, the bad twin.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So he has done main character. But, yeah, and that's like the absurdity, of going over the top. And then going to Prodigal Son, I automatically think of the party when, he's buying everybody stuff, drinks, or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're partying, and we have music, because we have music like pretty much nonstop. And then Brennan.
I remember this.
Brennan, I don't even know what that dance thing is called.
Was he the prodigal son or just one of the friends?
I think
he was one of the friends.
I think he was, but he's doing his little thing. I can't even do it.
It was like Egyptian music almost.
Yeah.
And he does this, I don't know what kind of dance it is. It's the Brennan. We call it the Brennan.
The Brennan. Yeah. Those, they call them air dancers, or that's what I've heard.
You mean belly dancers?
No. No. No, those things that like flop around at car lots and stuff. We get them for fireworks sometimes. They flop around. That's almost like what it's like, but he's always back,
Yeah.
He's back, and he's kind of got his arms off to the side, and
it's great.
Oh man. So yeah, every time if we're doing some kind of party, whether it might be the fire furnace, and they're doing the party. If he's one of the crowd or the servants, he's doing that.
He's doing it.
Yeah. So, oh man. All right. So number 3, let the kids be the smart ones.
I love this one because we've seen this happen so many times, especially if you're by yourself on stage and you're like, I mean, I'm going to use an extreme example, right? Because I'm looking at a light socket over there. It's like, I wonder how you turn this machine on. And you have a butter knife, and you start doing this goofy walk over to the light socket. And even kids know, don't do that.
Yeah,
right?
don't do that.
You're like, I wonder if this would work. And they're like, no. And you're like, this isn't how? No, you got to put it in the hole over there.
Yeah.
And so at that point, they feel like they're invested. They're part of it because they're kind of guiding and leading. Yeah. And they're very invested at that point.
Yeah, because they feel like they're the smart.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and kids love that, knowing more than the adult.
Yes.
They love that dynamic, I guess. Mm-hmm. You know what? I forgot. I'm going to do this live.
Oh, boy. I just noticed, since we're live, too, that my drink blends in perfectly well with this backdrop.
Oh. Yes. So,
Hey, we cannot cut this.
Behind the scenes disaster.
Let's go on the other way.
Oh, this is awesome. You know what happened is I had a chair here and somebody moved it.
Oh, no.
That's exactly what happened.
Okay, I got it.
Let me grab this chair over here.
Sorry about the view, folks.
This is awesome.
Have you created a blooper reel yet? Because this is definitely...
Yeah, this is great. Okay, that should, I think, stay. All right. There we go.
Hey. I could not get it out of the wall is falling. It was like...
I was trying to figure out what you were doing.
I had the drink in my hand. So I was like, oh, that's amazing.
All right, we're back. So those of you that are just listening to this,
you missed out.
You missed out. You had to go to YouTube and find this. the wall falling. Oh boy! So we got scene setter or like some KidMin Backstage scene setters up here to create this little cube that we're in, and it was falling apart.
No, I'm paranoid. So
I hope that camera is not off.
It feels like it's right on me. But.
Okay, good. Okay, so let the kids be the smart ones.
Definitely don't let the adults be the smart ones because this happened.
As evidenced by our fail here. I was going to mention an example. So Brother Philip Booker, he's great at this. He'll, I just remember this trick he does that is so funny. He has one of those magic bags, that has a pocket or whatever. So he'll put in this handkerchief. Mm-hmm. Like, I might get some of this wrong, but I think it's basically he puts in a blue handkerchief and he tells the kids what's going to happen. He's like, so I'm going to put this blue handkerchief in and it's going to come out. It's going to be a red handkerchief. And he's like, everybody say red. And so, of course, all the kids, they're watching and they're like, red. And then he pulls out a piece of bread. He's like, who said bread? It's hilarious. And then, of course, he does it. But he'll often do that with his tricks that he does. He does the Christian illusions, he calls them. And he'll set it up and then he'll make a mistake and look at the kids, he messed up. Oh no,
Did they notice?
Don't look. Yeah. And so that kind of, it makes it fun for the kids.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say too, is sometimes that's a way to engage the kids or get them involved. I've done that before, like say with the Plan of Salvation or something. Mm-hmm. Is you have a dunce character that doesn't know it and is getting it all mixed up.
Gets it wrong, right?
Yeah, and then you can have your serious character, like if you do pairs, you can have the teacher or whatever, and they can be like, let's help Billy out, or whatever. Let's help him. And so then the kids are like, we're going to help him and we're going to show him the way,
Especially when you like play it offhand. Like you're like, for example, we'll talk about like the Plan of Salvation. All it takes to get to heaven is, you just got to believe on Jesus, and you turn around and like immediately start doing something else. It's believe on Jesus. Yeah. So next we're going to, and the kids like immediately just go into like, wait a second,
Yeah, like, no, you can't. Yeah.
You don't have to wait for it. They just.
And that's a good example actually of kind of our first point about it's not just the joke. I mean, that sounds like a joke, but it's more like a situation. I guess what I mean is like, if you are saying like, all I have to do is this, right? Well, then it's more of a joke setup,
right? And
it still can work, but it's way better doing it like you just said. Yeah. It's like all you got to do is this, and then you're like, okay, next is, and then there's like, whoa, we were waiting for him to let us answer, but no, this cannot be
exactly.
Yeah. And so it's way better. That's the absurdity, the absurd situation. Or whatever. So okay, so we're kind of, as many of these points always do, they overlap and everything. But so I got number 4 is play with status, and kind of what I mean. And again, that's going back to the grown-ups or whatever. But and again, Brother Booker is really good with this. I mean, and we have staff that are as well. But as I wrote, let your character be completely confident.
Yes.
It's like your light bulb example. They're just completely confident. Like this is, and it is funny to do it the other way too. Like where, like Sammy, like, huh? Is this what I should do? But it's also funny when you have somebody that's just like, no, I'm just this is how, and then they fall flat on their face. Where the kids that's hilarious.
You know who's really good at that? Maybe not like the physical comedy, like falling and flopping around, but Brent is really good at this. I'm thinking like when he's done his professor type characters, Tori's got like mixtures that he's trying to make something, and he just. mean, the kids will say something. He's like, "What are you talking about? You sit down. No," and he'll do it, and it'll be completely wrong.
Yeah,
and the kids they going back to the smart. They're like, "I told you," you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and it's funny because like that character, it was in a spy thing. Professor
Benson.
Yeah, Professor Benson. What's funny is Joey did that character before.
Yeah.
And they both did a great job, but
very different.
But totally different. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Joey did that, and that's your brother. Joey did that character as like he had like this hat and these funny glasses and a sports coat, you know, and I just remember him like, "Mr. Bishop, the book is safe." And so that was kind of his character, this nerdy, like, yeah. And Brent,
crazy scientist.
Yeah, crazy scientist. He had this crazy hair,
white,
these glasses,
lab coat,
and then he got this bandolier.
He looked like a ammo.
Yeah,
right?
But it was test tubes.
Yeah.
And then what he did is he went in the fridge backstage and got like some Mountain Dew and some Pepsi, whatever, different colors, and something. Some Skittles and stuff. And he filled all this stuff in the test tubes.
It was awesome. He's so good with costumes too.
Yeah, it was over the top. And then what I was thinking about with that too is like he was like the kids love Sammy, Brennan's character.
Oh yeah,
but Sammy is very goofy and silly, over the top. And the kids love him, of course. Brent's professor character was also funny, but more. He was this like confident character. He was funny, but he was like totally confident in him, you know, himself. And then he would make an epic fail, you know. And then, you know, I remember we were doing some audio recording after one of the things.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, we're talking, and he's mumbling. You know, he's like, well, and then, you know, we're like trying to record the scene, and he's saying this stuff, and then I realized he's being the professor, so I was like, yeah, just keep on. I just gave him the motion, keep on going, and it's like really distracting like for other people, but it was still funny because he's like it was totally would be his character. He was in the background muttering and talking about all this stuff, like eating a banana or whatever, you know. So yeah, but anyway, so play with the status. So. And I kind of put your real confusion, and it is obviously not always real, but your real confusion can be funnier than forced silliness. And I think there's a place for all of it, right? But I think that like when you kind of are committing to the character and you're confused or you're perplexed at like how did this go wrong? Yeah. You know, I was so sure it was going to go right, and the kids. They know. They're like, of course that was never going to go right.
Yeah, they love it. And the kids love to think or to see somebody like get hurt. Yeah. Like I'm kind of more physical in my comedy, which the older I get, the harder it is. I feel it on Monday. But I mean, how many times you probably have too, I'm sure, multiple times, getting like running from the guards in some story and you're getting like tackled and literally drugged. Oh, yeah. Like drugged by your foot out and you're fighting. And yeah. But kids love to think you get hurt too. Like, I mean, I like physically, I think it's hilarious when people fall. I mean, it's terrible. Right. But an example, like you have, like, say, an actual banana peel on stage and this guy comes whistling along. Automatically, the kids know. They've seen it. They've heard it. They know banana peels. Yeah. You're going to fall. They see it coming and they will try to stop you. Yeah. And you're oblivious to the banana peel. Yeah. And you hit it and you slip and fall. And they just think it's hilarious. Yeah. And you're like, what? In that state of confusion, like, why did that happen? Especially if the banana peel moves and you can't see it.
And they're like, it's right there. Yeah, or it's on your back or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, you know, an example of this I just thought of is going back to the spy thing because I was kind of recent. Is so I guess this is a spoiler alert for anybody that might get this, but we have a character that she's a traitor.
Yes.
And so in the dynamic opening, which is, you know, as the kids are coming in to get seated or whatever, so in the dynamic opening, she meets Mr. King, who is the evil nemesis, and she's meeting him, and they don't even say anything out loud really. They're just talking, and then And then they're like, yeah, and agree, and they go their separate ways. And so the kids know automatically that she's bad.
Yeah.
And we just rescued her and all this stuff. And the main character, Mason, likes her, like a romantic interest. So we're getting ready to do the mission way later in the script. This is like 30 minutes in or something.
Yeah.
And I come out as director, and we're getting all of our people, our mission leads, because it's interactive. The kids are going to go on a mission. And so she comes out.
Yeah.
And they're it's so funny. They were so intense that I didn't actually realize at first what they were doing. I guess I forgot about the dynamic opening. And they're like, she's a spy.
Like immediately.
She's a spy. They're pointing at her like, she's a spy. I'm like, we're all spies. It's a spy theme. and so then I realized, of course, but then and this is an example of what, like, I wasn't being silly because the director isn't really a silly character.
Right.
So I wasn't being silly, but I kind of ignored them. We're all spies, All right. And then got them kind of distracted and get them into groups and stuff. And then we go out to the next room. We do our mission. And we're out there and we're hiding from Kroger and Mr. King, the bad guys.
Yeah.
And then she goes over and starts talking to Mr. King. So I'm there. I'm the director, and I'm like, do you guys see that? Oh, my goodness, what happened? And they're like, we told you. They're just like, because we're all on our knees, hiding in the dark. Yeah. And they're like, we told you. I'm just like, oh, my goodness, that's what you were saying? And then I was like, why didn't you guys tell me?
We tried.
So that's the going back to the absurdity.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we are at our time, so just a quick recap is, one, create a funny situation instead of a joke. And this is the method idea here is jokes are fine, but the method idea for that point number one is if you can be in a funny situation, if you're not comedic, if that's not your personality and you have a hard time doing that, then create the dynamic to where you don't have to be super funny for it to be funny because you're just responding to like this absurd situation.
Right.
And then number two, use honest reactions. Again, this is for the person that can't, that doesn't feel like they can be super comedy. They can be shocked at something, or you can be like the opposite of something, like the opposite of what your reaction should be.
Yes.
For example, like being really stoic or something, when it's supposed to be really funny or, whatever. And then number three, let the kids be the smart ones. They love that when you're just all confused. And it's a great way to teach too, is you can get, they say that the best way to learn is to teach something. So if you can get the kids to almost teach the dunce character by being the smart ones, and you're like, heart. How do I be saved? Or whatever, then they are learning it even better because they just told you how to do it.
Right.
And then finally, number four, play with the status again. And that's kind of like you can have a character, like even this is something we've done with scary characters, is make them a bumbling idiot.
Yes.
So it takes off the scary edge, but yet they're still really evil and a bad guy.
Right.
And so that's one way to kill two birds with one stone. You get that scary edge off, but then also you can play with that status, so it makes it funny.
Yep.
So that's find the funny, the comedy in Sunday school
and in podcasts.
Yeah, and in podcasts. Yes, we got the backstage disaster. You got to go to the video to see it. So, all right. Well, I think that's a wrap.
Yes, sir.